Thanks so much for joining us for this webinar, Drive Digital Commerce with Content Marketing. Here at WordPress VIP, we have seen that content is at the heart of the digital experiences that our customers are building for their customers. So in the case of commerce, that content can be really effective at driving customers to your brand and to your products. So we got together this panel of experts from enterprise e-commerce to talk about their experience with content marketing. And moderating our panel is Jari Carter, our Chief Revenue Officer. So Jari, I'll pass it over to you.
Thanks so much, Tess, and looking forward to chatting with you as we go throughout the webinar today. So thanks for hosting us here. My name is Jari Carter. I'm the Chief Revenue Officer here at WordPress VIP, and I have an exciting set of panelists here today. Mallory Russell, Head of Content Marketing at Square. We have Seth Kravitz, CEO at Phlearn, and John Kelly, CEO and co-founder at Craftpeak. Welcome, and thank you for joining me here today on this panel where we talk about driving digital commerce with content marketing. There's so much to talk about today, and we only have an hour, and we want to leave some time for questions at the end. But before we do jump into the questions that I have teed up here, I want to give each of you the opportunity to just introduce yourself briefly and share a little bit about your background. So Mallory, we'll start with you, and then Seth, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself, and then John, over to you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Mallory. I am based in San Francisco, California. I've been working for Square for about 4 years, grew the content marketing team from just me to a pretty multifaceted team at this point. But my background is I started in advertising. I became a reporter, and I kind of just blended those two together. And that's how I fell into content marketing. I've done really kind of traditional B2B content marketing. I spent some time doing B2C content marketing at change.org as their first content marketing hire. And then Square is kind of a bit in the middle, which is a really interesting and exciting kind of space to work.
Hi, I'm Seth Kravitz. I'm from Chicago, Illinois. I got my start in tech, started out of a basement after I dropped out of college with a friend of mine. We started a company in the insurance business, scaled up to about 65 employees, sold it to a company called Bankrate. And then ever since then, I've just sort of been doing tech startups, and now have reached a phase where I wanted something a little more stable. So about 4 years ago, I came in to run a company called Phlearn. Phlearn is a 10-year-old company that it's pretty straightforward. We teach Photoshop and photography online. So we're a very large online platform for the photography community to learn those skills. And that takes me through today, and just happy to be here and looking forward to the panel.
Thanks, Seth. I always love the stories of like dropped out of college, started an amazing company. It took me way more school than that.
I still have the debt. I still had that. I had that college experience. I had to drink a lot, go to parties, and I left with a ton of debt.
All right, but now I don't feel so bad.
Yeah, my name is John Kelly. I'm the CEO of Craftpeak, and similar to Seth, I think, I graduated as an engineer coming out of school and got straight into technology there. Ended up working for my first technology startup about 20 years ago, got bit by the bug, and it's been a string of technology startups since then. But at Craftpeak, what we do, we're based in Asheville, North Carolina, and we basically have built Craftpeak with the vision of aligning ourselves with great beverage companies, typically craft breweries. And really our goal is to understand their business challenges and develop solutions and technology to kind of help them address those. And as you guys may be aware, there's many opportunities kind of on the e-commerce and digital commerce side for breweries. So it's been kind of an exciting time to see that shift, but here and happy to participate in this panel with these folks.
Yeah, thanks so much. Thanks to all of you for participating here today. One thing, we had a bit of a preliminary conversation with the four of us just to kind of prepare ourselves for today's meeting. And one thing that really came up in our kind of pre-call was the growth of both audio and video marketing in content creation, and particularly around commerce. So how do you think about that? How do you think about this proliferation of audio and video content that's now hitting the market? And I'd love to get, because we have kind of two perspectives on this, I'd love to start, Mallory, with you and how you're seeing this within a big organization like Square. And then Seth, maybe you can tell a little bit how you're doing it within Phlearn.
Yeah, absolutely. Square has always been, we have an in-house video team. We're very lucky. They're amazing videographers, documentarians, the whole thing. So we've always kind of done a lot of work on the advertising side around video. It's probably our most common tactic in terms of your kind of traditional ad campaigns. I'm thinking about it slightly differently, like more from an editorial perspective, which is we've kind of flirted with for a long time, and now we're digging into pretty deeply. We've recently kind of decided that our YouTube channel is no longer going to be just a place to put video, and we're going to actually make it an editorial channel, which means really thinking about the purpose of the video along the entire funnel, how you bring in people at top of funnel with things that are maybe a bit more brand focused, and then pull them down, but also cross-link with your site to increase visibility in terms of search. I think what's really interesting is really kind of as a result of COVID, we've started like really digging into audio across kind of all of our channels. So we just launched a brand campaign last week that really takes audio, the stories of business owners, and puts those out for people to hear. We've been doing that across social for since early March. And this also led to like the proliferation of our first podcast, which I literally just uploaded the 3rd episode of. But it's really interesting. We're finding people really engaging with that because at this point in time, people don't really know what to do. Business owners in particular, there's a lot of questions. And so just letting people talk about what they're experiencing and talk to each other has proved really effective for us.
That's awesome. I want to come back to podcasting because that's something I'd love to hear a little bit more about. But Seth, maybe you could share your perspective on video marketing, how you're seeing that happen, roll out of Phlearn.
Yeah, I guess the biggest thing for me was when it came to marketing. I had done tremendous amount of marketing from, say, starting around 2002 up until 2016 when I joined here at Phlearn, and I had done, I don't know, 1% of that maybe was video marketing. I mean, we dabbled in it every now and then. We barely touched it. I didn't really believe in it. I just was like, whatever, it's too much work and all these things. I had all these excuses, and then I come to Phlearn, and I just I've completely gone 180 on it now, where I can't imagine doing any marketing going forward that isn't video-based marketing first, and everything else kind of falling in behind it. So that fundamental shift has just come from coming to a company where Phlearn, where our content and our product are actually their video. I mean, they're our product, we sell people video education. So being in a very much a video forward company, it was just immediate that I had access to a lot of video, yes, but also just our customers would definitely be thinking of us in the form of video, and it just naturally lent itself towards I guess it made it a little easier for me to just jump into, video marketing when the content and the product are both video. But at the same time, fortunately, way outside my comfort zone. It had me using tools that I had never touched before. And what I discovered, though, after only about a month and a half or 2 months into the role here, was that it was nowhere near as intimidating or difficult as I thought it would be. I discovered that I could even make videos on my own. I didn't have to ask anyone on our team to do anything for me. I could go and use a tool. There's really common tools now, like Animoto is one of them, where I can piece together a video in 20 minutes that looks, halfway decent. It's all right, and run it and see if that copy worked a little better than this copy, or I can make changes on my own. And these are things that I just would have been terrified to do before, because I thought video is this very scary, huge, intimidating thing that required massive budgets, and you needed to rent all these cameras, and maybe you needed models, and maybe you need all these things to like pull it off. And it's like, no. Now, if you look at a lot of the videos that are doing incredibly well, that are shared a ton on Instagram or Facebook or any other platform where you see video like Snap or TikTok or anything, they're usually very low budget, very easily shot. A lot of them are shot on phones. I guess the bar to what people expect now, even when consuming video, is just so much lower in the sense of people don't mind homemade looking videos, because a homemade looking video now actually looks pretty good considering the camera it shot on was pretty phenomenal, and lighting, people just discovered just go outside. Natural lighting is pretty amazing lighting. It's like all those things were just things, again, that I built up in my head as being this scary, intimidating thing that it turned out I was completely wrong. And now, going forward, any company I ever would work with or start again, I'm going to go video first on all of our marketing.
Thanks so much. I hadn't thought about all the video sharing platforms and how those are disrupting even how B2C video content happens. So it's fascinating. Mallory, talk to us about podcasting. That's something that's particularly come up, I think, for a lot of companies and even individuals during, this pandemic. How are y'all thinking about that? Just unpack that a little bit if you don't mind.
Yeah, it's actually really funny. I've been at Square for 4 years, and we've been talking about doing a podcast for 4 years. And when it came down to a number of things, is like the really big one was like finding the right idea that made sense strategically, and not just saying we're going to do a podcast because podcasting is cool right now, but like we're going to do a podcast because it actually like ladders back to our editorial strategy, our brand strategy, and like serves a purpose for us. So this kind of came about, like our social team had been doing these like very short audio stories on their channels and getting amazing engagement. They were really moving. And they were feeling this need during COVID that like, there's just a lot of unknowns and we can't give people all the answers that we usually give them because things are changing so rapidly and people have to adapt and pivot and, kind of come up with what works for them, even if it's, I always say retailers are food and beverage businesses now, and food and beverage businesses do appointments and, everything's kind of different. And so they started doing this. I saw the engagement and I said, you guys are going to laugh at me, but I think we should do a podcast. I know I say that all the time, but like, I think this actually makes sense. And we got together with our agency and talked through it and figured out that it really did. We had to talk through like a format and find a host, and we did it pretty quickly. We only started talking about this in May. And part of that is we have an agency who knows how to do this very quickly and came up with a great process for us. And the fact that we didn't say we have to get this perfect on the first episode, like treat it like, you see a TV show with a pilot and the pilot's often very different than the later episodes. Like, let's do the first episode, see what works and iterate as we go. And we've definitely seen changes over the episodes. It's really exciting to listen to that part of it and kind of find our stride.
It's so funny you say that because I feel like every 3 months when we do our marketing recaps internally, I'm like, isn't it time for the podcast to happen? Like I've been saying this for the past 15 months. Like I think maybe a podcast is a good idea. So I feel you on that, Mallory. John, anything to add on video audio content before we move on?
Yeah, I'd be happy to maybe jump in with a couple of comments here. Like, first of all, like I completely resemble the statements that Seth is making about being intimidated by video. I think it was one of the barriers that we had early on and still one that I think that we're getting over to a certain extent. And I think Mallory's comments about, starting this podcast and this initiative kind of carry the same sentiment where it's just like, you have to be willing to push forward without it being perfect. And I think that's been a shift also, is this idea of perfection, these polished videos versus what we're taking on the phone. And I think about even the shift where I find myself consuming information, and there's so much more time I'm spending on YouTube watching like very unpolished stuff, but I find a connection with that. And I think as I look at our customers and the engagement rates that they're getting on social media and other platforms, anytime that they're even going to put a video out there, no matter how simple it is, the engagement rates are off the chart compared to anything else that they're doing. So I think it's just, if a picture is worth 1,000 words, video is more important. And I think there's just something about the story and our human connection to that we're drawn to. So I think it's definitely here to stay, but we can do a heck of a lot better ourselves. So I totally, like I said, I resemble those comments from Seth.
Yeah, thanks, John. I want to just shift topics here in this. And I want to talk about driving customer acquisition through thought leadership content. This is something that's kind of come up in my conversations with each of you. Seth, you went so far as to you wrote a book that has been highly valuable in your customer acquisition strategy. So maybe if you wouldn't mind, we'll start with you, Seth. If you wouldn't mind just talking about how thought leadership plays into your customer acquisition strategy.
Yeah, this would be the second time that I've been part of a company where we realized, maybe writing a book could be really valuable. And the first time was back with that previous company I'd started, where there really wasn't any good thought leadership in the world of insurance. Basically, our customers were insurance agents. People weren't writing very interesting content. Shocking that insurance related books would just, there was
flying off the shelf.
Yeah. So we decided to write one that was a little more, I guess, fun and less dry than they were used to, a little more personality, and we gave it away free to all of our new customers when they sign up. And then we actually sold copies of it as well, and for a very low price. But the point was, it made a difference. It immediately separated us away from our competitors. Nobody else in our competing against us was doing anything like that. They might write a white paper that was like 5 pages long, and they might publish a few of those a year, but nobody had ever published a full long form book. And then because of that, I was inspired to try that again under Phlearn. So Phlearn just published a book recently. It's about marketing for photographers, and I decided I didn't want to publish a book unless we had distribution figured out first. So we partnered with Flickr and SmugMug, two of the biggest names in the world of photography, to co-author the book with us. And so they are now the authors as well on the book. So that means they're distributing it to their entire user base. We're distributing it to ours. There are coupons inside the book to sign up for any one of our particular services. But it is a very valuable, good book. We put a tremendous amount of work into it from industry experts who are experts at marketing photography. So the value is there. And so having the value be there, and we know and stand behind it as a high quality book, and having the distribution figured out ahead of time was really the key to making that work. So now the book has been emailed out to 10 million plus photographers, and hopefully that'll continue to trickle in from here on out. As far as, that's kind of a very much a top of the funnel thing where we just get on their radar as being someone that they can trust, who's giving out free information and really believes in their success and wants them to be successful photographers. And then we hope that that goodwill will pay off in the future. And that's the way we looked at it.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks for sharing that. Mallory, how are y'all thinking about that at Square?
Yeah, I think content marketing, you have to think about the entire funnel all the time. You can't just be producing for one piece of it. You have to think about how those pieces connect together. So just anything that you're doing, there's going to be a finite group of content that really converts. It's a small number of them, and they're like your workhorses, but you have to get people to them. And that's how you build the funnel from the top to the middle phase to the bottom. The podcast, which I'm going to plug it, it's called Talking Squarely, if you want to go take a listen. That's a thought leadership type of content. It's being used as part of our brand campaign. And so we're driving people in that way, and then we're linking them out to other types of content. I think anytime we think about thought leadership, which is incredibly important, that's kind of how we bring people in and start forming the relationship. It's how we let them know what we're all about and why they should trust us and why we're credible. Our goal from there is to think about what would be interesting for them next and create kind of a web of content that they can kind of get pulled into. So, at some point, even potentially leading to some kind of like email capture where we're then going to deliver you content to your inbox. So thought leadership for me is always the kind of the first step. We do a lot of it because you need a lot of top of funnel content to get people to the bottom eventually. And it's also that thing that I think people come back to even after they've become a customer. It's that thought leadership stuff that kind of keeps them engaged.
Yeah. How do you think about the effectiveness of your content? Because that really resonates, I think, with a lot of people that say, look, we have this top of the funnel content. I like that workhorse content, that phrase. I haven't heard that. But like this top of the funnel content, then moving methodically customers down the funnel, how do you think about the effectiveness, and how do you measure the effectiveness of content as you take it through the funnel to conversion?
Totally. It's such a hard question for every content marketer. I have just ongoing debates with people about this. I think a lot of places I've been, they come in and they want you to measure everything by conversion. Like I was just saying, like there's really a few number of pieces that really convert for you. And you may get credit through like multi-touch for other pieces of content, but really you should be judging the content by however it's being used in that particular moment, because one piece of content could be used for a campaign potentially that's driving like awareness, and another that like you really want to look at engagement. So as a program, we look at really really high level business metrics, like for us, because we have a lead generation team within content marketing, like we are looking at leads sent to sales. We're looking at, what money is actually coming out of the work that we do. But when you're actually looking at the individual pieces of content, you should be judging it by the purpose it was created for, as opposed to just like one metric for every single piece. That means that like reporting out on these things is actually quite complicated. And what I found is that most measurement systems that are set up, even within marketing organizations, aren't specific to content. There's a lot of other things I think that content marketers look at and look for that you wouldn't do with like a web page. Even sometimes the way that like bounce or engagement is measured on a public, like a web page on your site, is really different from how you would want someone to look at that for content. So example, like I know a lot of pages, they measure bounce by like, it's a bounce unless the person went to the next page. Well, sometimes with content, you don't need someone to go to the next page. You need them to sign up for your newsletter, or you need them to maybe just even read it because you're expecting them to come back later when they have the next question because it was so top of funnel. So I think my experience is that you really have to, every content marketer has to like really be their own advocate in terms of measurement and what that means, because it is a different way to think about it than traditional advertising and traditional digital marketing.
Mm-hmm. Being your own advocate, that I think that will resonate with a lot of people on this call who are really pulling forward the work that content's doing in the conversion funnel.
For sure.
Within their organization. I really like that. Seth, John, anything to add into this?
Yeah, maybe a couple of comments here is that, I think top of the funnel is exceedingly important. I think that buyers are becoming more educated on their own, so that content needs to exist out there as part of that buyer's journey that they're running into earlier, kind of in their experience. So, if the statistics will say that 67% of people are kind of making a decision prior to probably even talking to somebody directly from your company. So it's just more important that you've got that content out there. And I think it's like the second piece of that is, if you've got good intentions, lead with them. And I think, we just happen to work in a market where there's a lot of change right now. Things are going through kind of like some dynamic shifts in both the market and the businesses that are trying to adapt to that. And I think what we want to do is serve to kind of be a guide or a source of information, and not necessarily always thinking about it in terms of a direct acquisition or conversion, but kind of in that education phase, that awareness phase. And it gives us the ability to begin that conversation, to begin building that relationship. So certainly there is a business and transactional element associated with it, but just expecting that people are going to be making those decisions much more frequently on their own. So it's important to kind of meet them where they're beginning to get educated.
Yeah, and I'll just jump in really fast. I mean, I was talking a lot about how we move people down the funnel and overarching business metrics. But when you're actually creating the content, my team, what I always tell my team is like, your ultimate goal is to provide value, because nothing is going to happen after that if you're not providing actual true value to the person on the other end. In the way that potentially like you kind of think part like a publisher and part like a marketer in that respect.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'd say the other thing is that we look, and I would, consider Square and other strategic partners that we have relationships with like an important part of that equation, because there's things outside of what we know where we want to kind of leverage our relationships with other industry experts to kind of bring them to the table for the benefit of our customers. So it's not only about the content that we can provide, but also how can we leverage our relationships to bring the right skill sets and the right thought leaders to the table. And we'll be spending a lot of time with our own video and webinar series just focused on that, bringing the right partners to the table to kind of educate our market.
Totally.
Yeah, I guess just one final thought.
Please.
I've as far as content marketing goes, I feel like when it comes to measurement, it's, as Mallory was saying, it's not only very difficult, but it just takes a lot longer than I think anyone in performance marketing is used to taking. They're used to like, I run Facebook ad generated these number of clicks. Here's how much money we made. And they're not used to like, hey, there's usually a big ramp up period that takes a long time and costs a lot of money typically up front, depending on what you want to do. I mean, it can be a lower cost thing, but it's like you want to build even a knowledge base of, 100 articles that cover all the most common questions. Like even things like that take a lot of work and usually a lot of time and a pretty good investment. And then it's going to take a while before you even see the results of it once it's live. So like content marketing in general is just, it's not like, oh, we create a viral video on the first try and just magically. That was content marketing. It's never been how it works. So it's not really hard to measure, but it takes so long. And then I've always viewed it also like, as piggybacking off what John said, that it finally gives you an excuse to reach out to people that have typically been very difficult to reach, or you always wanted to talk to them, but you never could figure out any way other than you can't just email someone and be like, hi, I want to chat on the phone sometime. But if I say, oh, my magazine, which Phlearn has a magazine that we started specifically partially for this purpose, was to be like, oh, we would love to interview you for the magazine. This is our readership. Here are our numbers. You compliment the hell out of them, make them, feel really good about themselves. And then hopefully they reply back and say, yeah, sure, I would love to be interviewed. And there's ability to like reach somebody that you never would have been able to reach any other way. And you have them, potentially for 15 minutes, half an hour straight, and just one-on-one. And that's been powerful for us that way too. So, lots to think about when it comes to content marketing. It really is just this huge umbrella term that covers so many things that I think it's still very early, I guess, even in the industry, that there's a lot to trickle up through the rest of management so they finally understand it, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, that's exactly what we're doing now. Gather smart people, let them share their ideas with us, and share it out as content. So you're exactly right. I want to shift a little bit into one of the buzzwords that's coming up in marketing generally, and especially in digital marketing, is digital transformation. And I want to understand how you think about content fitting into digital transformation as you see it. So many companies that we talk to are thinking about and planning and organizing digital transformation. And I think the pandemic has only accelerated the planning and thinking and execution of digital transformation. How does content fit into that? Maybe I'll start with you, John, if you have some thoughts on that. And then I know each of you have a perspective on this, given your experience.
Yeah, well, I think that that represents just about everybody that we work with is kind of going through that digital transformation right now. And I'll try to keep this short because I know that this is a relevant topic for everybody. But, I think, if we think about this in the context, and I'll just kind of throw out an example there in our world, if we're working with craft breweries, there's a couple of things I think to consider. One is that I think many times we think about content in the context of it being pictures and words, and we've talked a little bit about video and audio here, but we also think it's an opportunity to kind of look at it as in terms of your products and what you do from a design and brand aesthetic. And if you're a brewery, a lot of your content is focused around your products and the thought and intent that kind of goes into them, the ingredients, the sourcing, things like that. So what we really try to do is, breweries are typically, great at creating kind of the real world experience in the tap room and tasting rooms. Now that tap rooms and tasting rooms are closed or at least limited capacity, how do we kind of extract and extend that brand experience into the real world? So what they're able to do very easily in the online world, but what they're very easily able to do in the real world, now how do we kind of create that same sense of engagement and online? And I think what we try to do is be able to kind of effectively use technology to point people to those products. And ultimately what we're trying to do is kind of connect the story closer to the transaction. And we think it's also an opportunity for businesses to kind of differentiate themselves by the experiences that they're creating online. So yeah, I think for us, we are seeing a lot of it kind of real time right now. And once again, it's what is the ultimate customer experience that you're trying to create, and how do you leverage technology to do that? And let's think about it different than just pictures and words. What are the other things that are really content that allow us to kind of create that experience online?
Thanks for that. Yeah, I appreciate that perspective. And we're starting to get questions in the chat about this specific topic. So maybe what I'll do is allow Mallory and Seth the opportunity to provide some perspective. And I may just jump into some of the questions that we're getting around this, because this is a really important topic. And I think we've hit on something given the questions that I'm seeing.
I can jump in.
Yeah, please.
I think, what I've seen particularly since about March is just content has become so much more important across kind of everything, because businesses in some cases can't operate the way that they used to, and they have to do things in a more digital environment. Kind of everything has to be content. It's, when we're thinking about it, it's, as a company like Square, we service small businesses. We know small businesses have lots of questions, so there's like a place for education. We know that they're looking for connection, for like understanding people going through the same situation, and there's room for content there. So there's been more opportunities, I think, than ever before to do that. It's just been more applicable. But even for those small businesses, like a lot of the things that we're teaching them is about like, how do you communicate with your customers now? How are you telling your own story? How are you communicating what you're offering and how you're offering it? So I think in every piece of this, the content plays a role, mostly because we can't interact in person as much before as we did before.
Right.
Yeah, and also I feel like now, as far as transforming any business that was didn't really have a great online presence before, to trying to do something, I think now is the time where you can get away with honestly just the most bare bones things possible, as long as it's online and your products are online and you can start selling online. I would say just push it live, because the customer is never going to be more forgiving than they are right now. They're never going to be more patient than they are right now. I was joking that there's this local bakery that about 3-4 blocks away from me that I would used to go to all the time, and they put up this just awful checkout experience to try to like pre-order their stuff, and you could stop by and kind of grab and go. And I put up with just this horrible checkout experience because I just want to support them, and I want to buy their goods and want to make sure they have some revenue right now. And I've discovered the same thing from siblings and friends. Like we're all doing similar things where we are willing to put up with e-commerce experiences that are not like an Amazon level experience, because we want to support smaller businesses and things like that. So I would say a lot of the excuses that anyone had before, where we can't have a great roll out our site and sell online until it's perfect, until it's amazing, until it's on Amazon's level or whatever. It's just like I think those excuses are just completely out the window. Now it's just time to get it live, and kind of benefit from the fact that customers are willing to put up with things they never would before.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like we talk to small business owners all the time, and that's what they kind of just started doing at the beginning of all of this. They just started putting up we have an online store product. They're just get that up and start going and see how it works and iterate. And then they came up with really creative ways to just like get people to that. Restaurants doing like cooking classes on their Instagram accounts and things that they weren't doing before, but it gave them a lot of room to experiment and try new things and see how their audience reacts. And in talking to them, it's things they wouldn't have done before, but necessity dictated that they try something.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. I really like those perspectives. I want to keep on this thread because there's a lot of questions that have actually come in about the pandemic. And one of those questions is many businesses have had to change during COVID to accommodate for online ordering. But with reduced staff and change in the facilities, many ran into roadblocks to generate content. What tips would you suggest to enhance the online e-commerce experience? This kind of goes in with Mallory, what you and Seth were talking about in terms of accelerating this e-commerce experience that people are trying to have.
I can give like some thoughts on my general philosophy around this, which is I had asked a lot, how do we do more faster? And I never think that's the right question. I think it's actually figuring out the thing, like even just the one thing that's going to work and do that well, like concentrate and do it well. So, because quite honestly, you could produce 10 articles that have the same results as one that like really took the time to research, like what keywords are people searching for? How are you going to show up? Where's their opportunity to win on search? I mean, I think the foundation of any good content program is organic search, and really building that up is going to set you up for success. So, I think you can actually do a lot more with fewer pieces of content than I think some people think, as long as you're doing your strategy and research, like going in depth there.
Right. It's really, I mean, it's about creating like blockbuster content, right? Like really high value, high quality content that you don't have to create as much of it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not how do we create as much content as possible? It's really how do we create maybe even a lot fewer content pieces, but at really high quality.
Yeah.
Seth, what would you recommend?
I mean, I guess piggyback a little bit off of what Mallory was saying was that content marketing generally just requires patience. That again, because I've done a lot of performance marketing too, where it's the opposite of patience. It's extremely ADD. It's like I got 100 headlines I want to test out, so it's like, okay, how can I do that on Facebook in the simplest way possible? And it's totally opposite, where it's content marketing is like, actually, you know what? Let me go interview a bunch of customers and see what they love about our product, and or not even that, just what do they do in their daily lives? How does this product fit into their daily lives? Try to ask not leading questions, do customer interviews, they call them. Then I look at the product and look at the survey results and how people are using it. And then out of that tends to morph a piece of content that's like, you know what, I think this would be a really valuable story that we could tell through the lens of one of our photographer customers and something like that. It requires a lot of patience that it is slow. Some people joke that it's like slow content. It's very slow content. But it also doesn't mean that you have to invest a tremendous amount of money. I think people they might think high production value and slow. They might think it's going to cost a fortune, and it's not necessarily true. It just content marketing, I guess, just really requires knowing your customer and your product exceptionally well, and really diving into the underlying reasons, just like a reporter would. I mean, I think that's why so many journalists and reporters have become content marketers, because they're really phenomenal at diving in and getting the real story, the real underlying thread, that this American lifestyle way of somehow tying together three stories that seem completely unrelated into one beautiful narrative. And those are the pieces that do tend to do exceptionally well and are shared. And a lot of companies have, Square being one of them, been able to build things that I guess 10 years ago would have been called a blog, but now they feel more like these digital magazines that happen to be run by a company. And they produce content sometimes on par, I'd say, with anything. Like a New York Times level content sometimes will come out of these content marketing pieces, and that's all very slow and patient, and sort of, I guess, the opposite of the e-commerce experience, which tends to be very rapid and convert somebody now and try to get them an hour later with an abandoned cart email, and it's all very much, that's the speed of pace, I guess, is very different between those two things.
Right. John, anything to add?
Yeah, I think, I think about it maybe a little bit differently, but it kind of builds on what Mallory and Seth are talking about here. I think right now what we're recognizing is like people just want the information. They want to know how they can get their hands most conveniently on your products. And I think about, Seth, your example with the bakery in your neighborhood. And what we see our brands doing is adapting and hustling, and their business doesn't look anything like it did 6 months ago, but they're fine with that because they're pushing forward and they're letting people know, here's how you get your hands on our beer, here's when we're releasing things, here's how we can make it convenient for you. So I think what they're doing is kind of distilling it down to making sure that people have the right information to get their hands on the products as easy as possible. So I think simplicity and focus to a certain perspective right now as their business owners are adapting, like let's strip it down, like let's just get back to basics. The second thing is that, consumers are being very, very flexible right now. Absolutely. Hopefully that remains for a while, but at the same time, we're also really discerning. If you look over the last 10 to 15 years, we as consumers really care about not only the products that we're buying, but the companies and people that are behind these things. So I think it's a combination of both, reminding people about the ethos and the personality and the people and the spirit that are behind the brand, while at the same time making it easy for you to get your hands on the products.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks for that. I want to shift because we're getting a lot of questions coming in about content strategy and metrics reporting, which I knew was going to be, a topic that this audience was going to really care about. One question, and I think a lot of people have this question, is how do you recommend proving the value of top of funnel efforts, particularly to resistant stakeholders who want to focus on tactics directly connected to revenue? So Seth, I think you're absolutely right in highlighting that, like, especially in e-commerce, there's a lot of times an impatience to conversion and a desire to see, instant results. How are you proving to stakeholders that maybe some of the top of the funnel efforts?
Yeah, I'll just touch on it quickly because I'm guessing Mallory has a lot of she's in a much larger organization where she has to deal with this. Because at the end of the day, I could be like, no, we're going to do it this way. But the way I've done it is we hired an editor-in-chief. She's a full-time salary person that is in charge of pretty much all the content marketing. We take content marketing seriously enough that we're like, you know what, we should treat it like it's its own magazine, its own thing, its own publication that has its own separate, in essence, editorial process. So that has helped me not ruin it by being like, okay, and under this first paragraph, I want a buy button, and then under the third paragraph, I want another buy button, and then can we put an ad like embedded like under like the seventh paragraph, and like can we have like 16?
Can we optimize for all these keywords that yeah.
And I want a pop up at 2 seconds, and then I want another pop up at when they've been on the page for 30 seconds. It's like to get in between myself and doing all that. Our editor in chief, she stops me and says, no, we need to deliver, a great piece of content first. And if they really, engage with it, enjoy it, we will win. I promise we'll win. You don't need to, try to just ram something, whatever it is, some CTA down their throat. So that's my experience personally.
Yeah, I think my first piece of advice would be like, one, you can't do by yourself. Like so working with your entire marketing team, like that philosophy has to be consistent across the entire marketing org. So I'm fortunate sitting in a team where that is the case, where like we do invest in brand and awareness. And so if you're investing in brand and awareness for your other marketing tactics, like you should be doing it with content too. If you are there are a lot of places where you just have a content marketing team because it is a pretty efficient way to drive demand. I think it's, again, not getting people to focus not on individual pieces of content, but how actually all of those pieces of content work together. So if you only created content for acquisition, that's actually a small pool. You're probably doing it with organic search. Like those search terms tend to get small for things that are like really, where there's really high intent, but there's lots of search volume for things much higher in the funnel. And so it's about showing people that like this stuff isn't just to get people into the site and it's just traffic. You're getting them there. You're creating journeys from the top of the funnel to the bottom of the funnel through links in your content, through recommended articles, maybe an email capture where you actually get to serve that information through CTAs, through surfacing that content in other parts of your site. So you have to kind of paint that picture that like it's not any one piece of content, it's the sum of all the parts. And by building the top of the funnel, you're actually creating something that grows much more quickly and like creates this kind of, you invest a lot less over time if you're building the entire funnel just versus the bottom.
Yeah. Anything else to add on this?
Yeah, I was just going to second what Mallory's saying here, because I think the way that we think about it is kind of like the content ecosystem more than any one specific piece of content. And there, with we're very lucky in the sense that everything, just about everything can be measured at this point, but that doesn't mean that those measurements are meaningful. So I think it's one, not looking at any one single piece of content, focusing on the ecosystem. And then within that, kind of systems theory, take a big step back from it, focus on the areas where you think that there need to be some adjustments or enhancements, measure those things, make improvements there, knowing that the health of the ecosystem is going to drive overall results. But it's not necessarily a direct line between a single piece of content and a sales number.
Yeah, love that. I want to go, and this will probably be kind of one of the last kind of places that we can visit today. There's lots of questions, and we talked about this even in our pre-call about distribution channels. So, one of the questions that came in that I thought was great was, how do you identify channels beyond your brand's owned properties to drive more visibility of content? And, do you tend to publish on Medium or other similar platforms? Anybody have thoughts on that? It's not for one specific person.
Yeah,
Yes.
I mean, I have comments. I'll just try to
start it out. I'm sure everybody has thoughts on it.
Because we rely very heavily on other platforms for our inbound things that we don't control. So we started off as a YouTube channel over a decade ago. So we kind of started, in essence, our whole journey as a third party platform, and then brought that audience over to our site. But I don't know if it really, I don't know. I realize everyone wants to try to control the content if they can, have everyone come to their own property, but that's just completely unrealistic today. So everything we do is about syndicating our content out to as many places as possible. So if we create a video is going to go native to YouTube. It's going to natively post it to Facebook as well. We're going to natively post it on Instagram, everywhere. We're not going to try to link all of them to go to one place. We're not going to try to drive everybody back to our site. We want people to consume our content on the platform that's most comfortable to them. So everything we design is designed to be syndicated out a bunch of times. So if we write an article, we syndicate it over to our Medium magazine, where we just duplicate our entire magazine experience on Medium in case somebody wants to experience our content there. Why force them to go to the site when they prefer to just do it inside the Medium app? So everything we do from written to video to image goes out to probably 7 to 10 platforms, depending on what kind of content it is. And I want them to just experience it there. And if they come back to our site, then so be it. And I realize it's a very difficult thing to sell an executive to be like, if they come back, so be it. That's probably don't use that line. But that is sort of our strategy, and it's worked very well for us. And I guess those are my thoughts.
Thanks. I really like that, Seth. I do see this tension of, gating content or using content as an acquisition strategy. So I really like the philosophy and the thought of like just meeting customers where they want to consume content. Mallory, you think about this a lot in terms of content syndication.
Yeah, I have they're like, when you work in a place for a long time, there's like a few things that people know you're always going to say. This is one of them, which is whenever someone starts talking to me about content, I say, what's the distribution strategy? To the point where someone made me a sticker that's on my computer. So I think about distribution a lot. To me, you can't think about the content without thinking about the distribution strategy. like I keep saying, like, we do think a lot about SEO. So like any content we're doing, like that's kind of the foundational distribution, which is like, how are we going to search optimize this? We do rely a lot on our own channels. You know, the content we produce gets pushed out through our social channels, through our different email channels. We cross-link with our YouTube channel a lot. The way that we've put together our content strategy, though, we do it pretty holistically. So the other thing that we think about is we're going to use all of our own channels, but how can we use pieces of our strategy to support paid campaigns that may be ongoing throughout the year? And so we kind of are always thinking about the multiple use cases of any piece of content we produce, and it's proved quite effective for us. We also do some syndication partners. We do a lot of branded content now with publishers. So we are producing things, you know, where people can find them. My big thing is that, like, once we're talking about our own channels, not creating islands of that content, making sure that island or that place they can find content is one place when it's associated like with our site, because otherwise you're really doing a disservice to, one, building up a channel is very difficult, getting a lot of traffic to a channel. And so if you put it all in one place, you're going to continue building that traffic faster and those people coming in rather than separating it all out. So I think you can get really creative though with your distribution. I'm doing some tests right now around earned media with the podcast that I'm pretty excited to see how they go. I don't know if they're going to work in reaching out to people and pitching in a way that we haven't done before. So I think you can get pretty creative with how you do that.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks for that. I want to get a sticker made. Tess, we should get a sticker made for a lot of people on this. All the attendees of the webinar. What's your distribution strategy for your content?
I'll send you guys some.
Yeah. Send us a couple, Mallory.
We'll have an agency make me a stack.
We'll have them replicated. I'm actually not kidding. We should figure out a way to do that. That's great. John, anything to add on that?
No, I think these guys are the experts.
Yeah, well, they've certainly instructed us here today. Tell me any final thoughts? We have, you know, a few hundred content marketing experts on the call who have, you know, come to hear our thoughts on this. What did we miss? Was there anything we missed in today's conversation that you feel like we have a handful more questions, which we'll get to all the questions asynchronously, but I wanted to just open it up to the panel if you have any final thought or anything we might have you'd like to clarify or mention before we wrap up today. That's a good thing. It sounds like we covered it. I'm glad that was like we didn't talk about this one thing that's so important, and I'm glad. I think distribution, we could probably spend a whole lot more time on that, because I think that is, and we should probably just do a separate follow-up webinar about distribution and how to think about content distribution, because I think that's such a hot topic, especially now when content distribution strategies are changing so rapidly. You know, we've seen that in our business and in the businesses of our customers, both at WooCommerce and at WordPress VIP. We just see customers, not just their physical distribution strategies changing rapidly, but their content distribution strategies are adjusting so quickly, and how they go to market is just dramatically changed. So we should probably do a follow-on there. With that, I'm going to wrap up. I'm going to thank you, the three of you, for joining me today. I thought it was fantastic. Tess, I would love to just turn it back to you to close us out and tell us anything we missed in this.
Well, I wasn't on the panel, so I won't be able to tell you things. They're all the experts. But yeah, thank you all so much, the panelists, for joining. Thank you to all of our participants and for asking such great questions. As Jari mentioned, we didn't get time to get to everybody's questions, but we will be trying to answer those later asynchronously. Look out for some other materials to be published from the webinar. So you'll be all getting a recording of the video, but we will also be making it into an ebook where we can answer those extra questions as well. We had lots of great ones. And maybe, as Jari said, maybe another webinar on distribution. Sounds like it would be worthwhile. So yeah, at WordPress VIP, we're seeing a lot of our customers turn more and more to content marketing to drive customers to their products. So it was just really great to have all of these content marketing experts on today to talk about their own experiences with that. So yeah, really appreciate everybody's time, and look out for more from us soon. Thanks so much.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Bye.
Yeah.